Good morning. Daily Cortado. Thank you, Saudi Coffee. Thank you, beloved creation. And early yesterday and this morning was busy studying the word, and as you know, we are currently in the parasha of Acharei Mot, the 29th parasha, and Kedoshim, the 30th, is done with this parasha. But let's focus on Acharei Mot. Acharei Mot means after the death. And while I was studying and obviously going through the tabernacle every morning with Yeshua, visiting the Father, and receiving messages in this time where we are now. And the message is clear that during this period of first fruits to Shavuot, in other words, Shavuot is between these times is a 7-week period. And during these 7 weeks, it's for you and me, and I'm talking just about myself, to lay sins before the Father and to realize that there's still a lot of myself that must die. John 3 verse 30, right? Less and less of me and more of you. And Acharei Mot, which is after the death, I considered that, Yeshua's death. What happens after Yeshua's death? Obviously, he was resurrected, right? He didn't stay dead, but he's resurrected. And with his resurrection, he left a promise that when he ascended to heaven, he left us with a promise in John 14 verse 16. And I will ask the Father, and he will send you another comforting counselor like me, the Spirit of truth, to be with you forever. So there's something I want to emphasize this morning. In Shavuot, or at Shavuot, we are actually celebrating the day that the Spirit, the tongues of fire, was poured out on the disciples. So the Spirit came and lived within us. It's always been in us, but that was the symbol, the sign that the Spirit came to live within us in Shavuot. So in Romans 8 verse 6, Paul writes, Shahol, having one's mind controlled by sin is death, but having one's mind controlled by the Spirit is life and shalom. So what happens is after the death of our old lives, our old sins, our old desires, Galatians 5 verse 24, all the desires that we had, our own desires, my own desires as Leon, laid down, died, so that I can live in the Spirit. And that's what Galatians 5 verse 16 this morning. What I am saying is this, Shahol, once again. Run your lives by the Spirit. Then you will not do what your old nature wants. Galatians 5 verse 25 says to us, since it is through the Spirit that we have life, let it also be through the Spirit that we order our lives day by day. Sure, that's awesome. It even takes another sip of coffee there for that great message. And that led us to Psalm 8. Psalm 8, one of my favorite Psalms. And it's also a week that it's been constantly on my mind. Psalm 8, Psalm 8, Psalm 8. And I want us to look at Psalm 8. Verse 1 says, of course, Yutevave Adonai. How glorious is your name throughout the earth. But then David speaks about when he looks at the skies, when he looks at the universe, when he looks at the moon and the stars, and he says, who are mere mortals that you even think of them, that you even make time to spend with them, that you even worry or are concerned with them. And then he says in verse 4, he says, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have set in place, what are mere mortals? What am I that you concern yourself with us? And then he says, you made him. And I want you to understand, I want us to understand, me to understand. I'm replacing him with me. Because he says, you made him, and I'm saying, you made me, but little lower than angels. You crowned me with glory and honor. You had me rule. Hear this. You had me rule. You and I, we rule over what the hands of the Creator, the great Creator has made. You put everything under our feet. And then he finishes off, because our Father is the Aleph and the Taf. He's everything. There's nothing outside of him. No life, no hope, nothing outside of him. And the Aleph Taf is completed when David finishes off his psalm by saying, Yute Vave, Adonai, Lord, Here in Afrikaans. How glorious is your name throughout the earth. So, man, you can walk around, I can walk around with a smile all day. No matter what we face, we have been placed as, we have received a crown. The crown of glory to rule over this creation. The fingers of God made this creation, the work of his hands, and he appointed you and me to rule over it. What an awesome appointment. How great is his mercy and his grace for you and me to rule over this awesome creation. May grace and shalom be ours in full measure